Welcome to the Pastors and Money podcast. I'm Joy Suzanne Hunt, pastor and financial coach, bringing you conversations about personal finance, church finance, and how we disciple our churches in the areas of finance and stewardship. You can find the episode show notes and more at pastorsandmoney.com. And here's the show. Pastor Logan oversees the Influence Division of River Valley, which includes River Valley Network, River Valley Worship, River Valley Resources and Publishing, conferences, and hosting. In addition, Pastor Logan hosts Talking Church, a podcast for pastors and church leaders. He and his wife, Mac, love to travel the world, and Logan does his best to golf at as many places on the way. Logan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Logan, as we get started here, can you first just share with us a little bit about how you got started in ministry and what your current role is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pastor's kid for all the PKs out there. Served in ministry unofficially and unpaid for a long time, just kind of following after my parents. And I didn't think I wanted to be in ministry initially, but as God does, just kind of pulled me back in. And I was doing business at the time and found out that there were roles in the church that you could utilize business skills, but also give God glory for it. And ended up in our young adult pastor role and loved doing that for 4 years, and then have been in the role I'm in now, which is over our Influence, which is our pastors network, our Generosity Accelerators conference, as well as podcasting and some digital external things that we're working on as well. And in addition to helping out my dad a lot still. So as we all are in ministry, we have many hats that we wear. And so I tend to change them quite often, but keeps things interesting.
That's fun. So we first connected actually because I attended one of the Generosity Accelerator trainings that led by River Valley. And we've been implementing this at our church over the past few months. And I'll just tell you, I keep telling people about it all the time. You have to do this
Thank
thing.
you.
So can you tell us a little bit about Generosity Accelerator? What is it? Who is it designed for?
Yeah, it's really designed for anyone who has a leadership position in a church. It doesn't have to just be pastors, but we invite boards and deacons and people who have ownership. For some smaller churches, they have committees and people that are helping oversee financial decisions. Maybe for a larger church, you have multiple staff that are devoted to this. But really, it's any size church, anyone who's involved in these decisions, or anyone who raises money in a church setting. And so we teach people about how we raise money. Obviously, we talk about the biblical principles, things like tithe and offerings and above generosity. We kind of try to define that. But we've seen how God has blessed our church and through giving. And kind of the core principle is the more you give away to people, the more God blesses you. And I think that we oftentimes as pastors believe that for people in our congregation. But when it comes to how we manage our church finances, sometimes we can be a little bit inward focused. And so I think when you change it to be externally focused, I think God is a God of more than enough. And so he can take care of the needs that you have in addition to the needs of others when we put others' needs first. And I think that comes right from Scripture. And we've tried to manage our church that way. We're not always perfect at it, but over the years we've grown a lot and just seen God do some incredible things in the area of generosity.
I love that. I think like there is this difference, right, between sometimes how we tell our members that finances work and how we actually work with them as a church. Sometimes even down to, are we telling them to budget, but how are we handling that as a church? And asking them to step out in faith, but are we stepping out in faith on the church finance side of things? So what would you say sets the Kingdom Builders program apart from other charitable or giving initiatives that we've seen?
Yeah, and even the name Kingdom Builders, and we address this at the Accelerator, but we use that term that a lot of people use. And I think for good reason. It's a term of, okay, we're building God's kingdom. You also can take the identity on as I am a kingdom builder. So I think it makes sense why a lot of people use it. So there can be some confusion around what we're teaching versus what other people are teaching. And that's not a knock on what other people are teaching. It's just what we feel is the core principle of what Kingdom Builders is on one hand, it brings everything together in one place that is not your traditional church giving. And so, things like our ministry departments or our staff salaries or food that we're going to buy on the weekend, like donuts and coffee, those things aren't going to live under Kingdom Builders. But over and above initiatives, things like building campaigns or missions projects or serving our community or training up the next generation, those live in Kingdom Builders. And we call it a Great Kingdom of God Mutual Fund. And many people in our congregation can understand what a mutual fund is because they have that for their retirement. And so we say, hey, we're essentially the stock picker. We're going to vet these partners. We're going to do our due diligence. We're going to make sure it aligns with the vision and mission of our church. But you then can accelerate the vision and give to Kingdom Builders. And so you set the pace of when these projects are funded and who, or how much we're able to support. But we're going to do the vetting because just like with this in the stock world, many people are so focused on their job, their family, the sports their kids are in, the problems that are in their house or their car. They don't necessarily have time to vet the 20 or 30 or even 5 different partners. They want to give to a place they trust. And we, as the pastor, can carry that for them. Now, that does come with a sense of responsibility as a team that we must not just oh, that's my cousin who's in this country and I support them because they're my cousin. Or, oh, that's a church that I like because, they're cool people. We must have much better vetting process than that. And it really makes the church to be an important place for our generosity. But of course, we believe first we're going to answer to God for it. And then secondly, we got to answer to our board and our congregations that we put this money in the right place. So as millions of dollars come in for our church, we're taking that very seriously. And so we do vet our partners throughout the year as well as at the end of each year to make sure that they're giving us a return on what we're hoping they have. And again, everyone's judged a little bit differently depending on their type of ministry. But overall, that's the goal of Kingdom Builders, is to make it simpler for our congregation so that they can be the funders and the accelerators. And then we can be the ones that are making sure that it's being utilized in the areas of ministry that is the vision of our church's heart.
Can you talk a little bit more about how it makes it simpler? Because I know we have this experience in churches of, missionary comes up and asks for this, and then, oh, we've got kids camp, and oh, we've got this next initiative coming up. So how does the Kingdom Builders program make that simpler for the church members to be a part of?
Well, the sad reality is that church attendance has gone down over many years and in terms of frequency as well as overall numbers. But since COVID, it's gone down even more. And so we're seeing by our data that people are coming an average of 1.3 times a month. And so, one every 3 weeks, for some, one every 4. Now, as a large church, that those numbers are skewed, of course, by those who only attend a couple times a year. But that happens with smaller churches as well. And so there's those who are faithful, who you see every single week, but then there's those who come only on holidays. So that's kind of where that's skewed. But if that's on average once every 3 weeks or once every 4 weeks, well, that means that if we're talking about the initiative to raise money for kids camp only one time, well, most people are going to miss it. And we hope and expect that they watch online, and some of the more committed do, but by and large, people are not coming every single week. And so we think that they're thinking about us all the time. We think, oh, how much am I going to give to that initiative? And I know that they're raising money for kids camp, and I know that they're raising money for the building repainting, and I know they need to resurface the parking lot, and I know they want to fund that missions trip. And I heard about the tornadoes that just hit that state, and we're going to help support them. And it can become overwhelming, but more than even overwhelming, it can just be a communication breakdown. Where do I give this? How do I give this? Who do I designate this to? Did I miss the window that I can do that for? And Kingdom Builders makes it simple to where we believe in the tithe. That's a principle that we stand in the church. I know some kind of wonder, is that still for today? We do. We practice it. All of our staff does. And we say above the tithe, then you give to Kingdom Builders. And so really there's, aside from some extreme circumstances, there's really only 2 places that we direct people to give towards. We're either tithing, your first 10% that we give back to help fund the church life. And then above that is Kingdom Builders. And so they don't have to worry about, am I giving this to the right place? If they've been around for more than a month or 2, they start to understand the language.
I love that. We had experienced kind of the backward side of that communication breakdown, where we're a pretty small church, and we had a year where we gave, I think, $10,000 to our SoCal Network's big initiative that year. And it was a really powerful story with water filters and house church plants, and nobody knew about it.
Right.
And like all these people, after we shared the news with the church, if this is what we're able to do, they're like, man, I wish we had known. We would have given to this thing. And it was just a complete breakdown in the rhythms of getting that communicated out. So, how does the Generosity Accelerator training and the Kingdom Builders program work to cultivate that culture of generosity within the church community?
I think the biggest area that it grows, and we've had testimony upon testimony. I mean, I appreciate that you're getting the word out for us as well, but we hear just so many people say this has changed things, not only for me as a pastor and our team for organizing, but this has helped change the language of our church. And one pastor actually wrote to us and said, the financial increase, I believe, is the least beneficial thing to that, which you may say, well, what do you mean by that? He said, the culture of our church has changed to where people are leaning in. They're more excited. They're anticipating. They're paying attention to what God is doing. And I think just the example you just said, I wish we would have known about it. I think there's so many pastors that they get caught up in the grind of ministry that they don't realize the amazing fruit and the amazing work that they're doing that people in our congregations, they just don't know about. And I mean, as somebody in ministry, my work is very fulfilling. But even in the work that's fulfilling, it can become mundane at times. Well, think about those in the work that their coworkers aren't pastors, their coworkers aren't maybe believers. Maybe their coworkers are talking about the affair that they had, or the money that they spent in all the wrong places, or getting drunk on the weekends, or even just being selfish about wanting a promotion and kind of wanting to step over other people and not caring about it. I'm not saying that's everyone in the workplace, but for those who don't have the fruit of the Spirit inside of them, it's often that they see that. And so they're coming home from work and they're trying to wrestle and live out their faith with people who don't know Jesus. And then all the other issues that I mentioned earlier, they're not living a fulfilled life to many places. Now, of course, I don't mean that to say you can't live a fulfilled life, but I'm saying by and large, people are getting worn down by the world as they do, and they need to be filled up and encouraged that being a Christian and having this faith is making an impact in this world. And so that's why I think that Kingdom Builders is a great way to communicate it to people. I think a lot of pastors are afraid, and I love that you're talking about this with this podcast. They're afraid to talk about money because they're afraid to be perceived as money hungry. But as we read in Scripture, we see that God talks about money so often, and I think he does it because he sees how much it could take us away from the things that he has for us that are best. And one of the other things we say, we live in the wealthiest large nation in the world. I think we've got to get this money thing right. And if we don't, we are the rich young ruler that walks away from the gifts that God has for us. And so we're unashamed about asking people to be generous. Of course, we need to be good stewards of it. We will answer to God about how we managed it. But I think it's a grip that it has a stranglehold on America. And we say, can we show people a better way that we're blessed to be a blessing? And if God brings more to us, we're going to continue to bless others.
I love that. So, talking about River Valley in particular, how do you engage and encourage your members to participate in these generosity programs, especially those who might be hesitant at first or they're not really sure about committing to giving?
Yeah, I think at first we have to realize, yes, there are people who are hesitant about this, but I think we have to focus on those whose lives are going to be changed throughout it. If we're always focused on those that are hesitant, we're going to try to walk on eggshells and be very concerned. The truth is, I find most people in our church are excited to give and expectant, and they see God blessing them in return. Now, it may not be that they get a Ferrari because they gave $100, but they see the blessing of what generosity does in them. That's what most people miss. And again, as pastors, we know this, but they miss that it's not even about the financial transaction that God's talking about. He's saying the way you live when you live a generous life, when the thing that the world loves so much is money, and you give that up, oh, it's transformative. And so I think for pastors, if we truly believe that generosity is transformative to our body, soul, and spirit, then that must be a part of what we teach. And I would say in how we engage people, we talk about it frequently every single week. We're going to bring up, hey, this week we're receiving our tithes and our Kingdom Builders. If you don't know what Kingdom Builders is, here's what that is. Here's a project that we're raising money for this month. Here's a collection of projects that we're raising money for this month. And so those are things that we're always putting in front of people. And I think because of that, people can't escape it. And you may say, oh, well, that sounds very pressure. It's not about pressure. It's about that transformative power that we're talking about. I give 10% of my income to the church, and I give significantly more above and beyond so that I can see this change. We practice it. We're not living as hypocrites. We're saying we practice this ourselves. We want you to do this because it's changed our life too. And I think that it's the same for the gospel. If the gospel is good enough for other people, we should share it. If generosity is good in your life, you should help other people find that gift as well. So that's how we think about it. And we just are unashamed. And of course, there's going to be people that it rubs the wrong way. I hope when the people that get closer to us see our heart and experience what we're talking about. But there will be people who leave, and that is one of the hardest things. But the truth is, seeing more and more people that are stepping in, that has to be what carries us.
Yeah. And it reminds me of when we talk about vision, and I don't know who this originated with, but that about the time you're sick of talking about vision is about when people are just starting to get it.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing about finance and about giving, that, you know, I'm sick of saying it because I'm the person up there every week, right? saying it over and over and over again. But some of those people are hearing it for the first time, or it's starting to click for the first time.
Yeah, if we had that same idea with the gospel, then, you know, man, we've been doing the same thing for 2,000 years. You know, it's getting old right now. No, it's the message is still true.
Right. Yeah, that consistency is so important. So what does some of the fruit look like? How do you measure the impact of these programs? Do you have any success stories or any examples of churches who have been positively impacted by participating in these programs?
Yeah, I mean, it's countless. I get texts and emails all the time from people just saying thank you, and many pastors who are saying, I never knew how to talk about it, and this has given me language to speak about this in a confident way. Other pastors that said, hey, before this, we gave around $60,000 a year to missions, which is awesome, but now this last year they gave over $800,000 about 6 years later from doing this. And so, I mean, that's over 10x of an increase. And you may say, hey, well, that's not what I can see. You know, any increase is an incredible thing. But I talked to another pastor who their giving was around $40,000 or $50,000 above their tithe, and then this last year, 2 years later, it's $200,000. And so people are jumping in and being a part of it. And you may say, okay, well, that's just monetary value. Like I mentioned before, that pastor that shared, it's not even the monetary; it's the culture in our church. I get invited to speak at places, and just because people want us to see what's happening through Kingdom Builders, we go to churches all the time. I was just at one a couple weeks ago where they actually have the Kingdom Builders book that we made, and they just modified it for their own, teaching their congregation on how they're doing this. I can't think of the impact more than the missionaries that we support, the churches that we plant, the young people that we're helping get behind, whether that be through scholarships or through internship training programs or sending them on mission trips. We are literally in the business of using this money to change people's lives. If it's about a building, you've got it wrong. If it's about growing your own pockets, you've got it wrong. Now, sure, some of those things may happen if your church grows and if you need a new building and if you get a raise. Praise God for that. It's not wrong. It's not wrong for it to be a byproduct. But it is wrong if that's our motivation to say, I want to have the best building so that people think I'm the best pastor, or I want to have the most money. By and large, I see very few people that are doing this that think that way, but it is something we always have to fight against.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about that impact. So when I went to that training that you guys had in San Diego last year, my aunt and uncle, who are missionaries, were there with me, and they realized about an hour into the training, their church in Japan had been one of the recipients from River Valley.
I remember this.
And that was a super fun moment for them to go like, wow, not only does this work, we've been on the receiving end of it. Like, we've experienced the fruit of this, but this is something that even they were able to take back. So how has this, does this look any different for a big church versus a small church in terms of how it's implemented or what that fruit looks like?
Yeah, just one more note on that. If I'm remembering correctly, I want to say that they didn't even know which church had sent them that check and funded that initiative for their building or whatever the initiative was.
Yeah.
And then that's what put the pieces together. And we were like, oh, I remember sending that, but neither of us connected the dots. And we had just had a trusted friend that said, this is a great project to give to. So I love that. Again, that's something from Kingdom Builders that is when you have money that you can give to things, again, this is designated money for Kingdom Builders projects. This isn't just if there's gravy at the end, we give bonuses out to the team. This is money that's designated to do the work of the Lord and to build this kingdom, but it gives you that little bit of flexibility. And we recommend everyone to have a fund. We used to call it the Wind of the Spirit Fund. Now we call it, strategic partner projects, but something that is urgent or undesignated. Always have something set aside as a church, even if you're small and you say it's only a few $100s. Maybe it's that person in your community who needs groceries, or maybe it's that person that you say, we just didn't have the benevolence available in the general fund, but you had it a little bit extra. And so those are things that I think are ways that you can utilize Kingdom Builders to actually be spontaneous. Now, getting to your question, I think it does look different for big and small churches. I think if you're multi-site, you can start divvying out projects across different campuses, and different campuses can own different ministries that they support that maybe their campus pastor has a heart connection to, or maybe that's where you send your mission trips. We call them global teams. You send them out frequently to see those projects. That's another thing we just articulate. Send people to see this. You may think they're never going to go to that country. I can tell you, I've brought teams to countries that most people in America would think is a current war zone. And I bring people all the time. I've been to nearly every country in the Middle East. We send people all over the world, the countries, all the stands that you would think that nobody even knew that those were countries. We send people there because they're willing to go. I think people are more willing to go. And so maybe you can't do that to every single project, but maybe you rotate and do one. And as a smaller church too, I think you have to realize that your money still matters. You think, oh, my $10,000, my $20,000, it's not making a significant impact when churches like River Valley can give $10 million. No, we're all supposed to do what God did. When you see what God gave us, when you see the parable of the talents, I see in Scripture that he actually has the same response, my good and faithful servant, to the one who had 5 talents and the one who had 2. Right. Because they both gave a great return on it. I believe that if the person who had 1 talent doubled it to 2, that the response would have been the same. Great job. You did an awesome job. He was only mad because he buried it and didn't do anything with it. So you may be a 5 talent, you may be a 2, you may be a 1, but it's not for us to compare with each other. It's to say, God, what if you entrust me with these 40 people, these 100 people, these 5,000 people? You've entrusted me to shepherd them and lead them. I am going to train them in the area of generosity. And, again, contextually, it may look different than how much money you're sending to organizations, but I wouldn't let that be an inhibitor, because I really have seen that Kingdom Builders can work in any area. We break it down between local church ministries, global missions, and future Christian leaders. Every church, I believe, can get behind that. And maybe your number of projects and your dollar amounts look different, and your language and your execution of it might change. But I think the overall core principles, I don't think it's much different.
I was wondering if it might even be easier for a small church to implement, in just that you don't have to convince as many people to change their way of thinking, and then you can grow from there, shifting 60 or 70 people versus shifting 1,000 or 2,000 people in their way of thinking as a little bit of a different game. So when I've talked to, some of these pastors of smaller churches, and like, start now. The sooner you start, the easier it'll be to get something going.
Agree.
So what resources are provided to those who participate in the Generosity Accelerator training?
Yeah, so if you attend one of our in-person events, and they're free, we used to charge money for them to help support our network, and we just felt that God wanted us to do this for free. So we found sponsors that are able to take care of all of our costs and all of the food for people during lunch. Truly, there's no cost to you. And again, you're a recipient of that. We didn't charge it. We didn't shake you down. There wasn't an offering at the end of it to give to River Valley. Truly, we just want to bless your ministry with these tools. And so at the event, we have a workbook that we go through. We teach from usually it's about 9 or 9:30 till 3 p.m., where we go through each session on setting a foundation of generosity, culture, language, the calendar of the year, donor development, all of those big questions that many churches ask. And then above and beyond that, we actually have an online Generosity Accelerator that maybe afterwards you can show to your board or people who aren't able to make it, or maybe even if you're listening right now and you're not able to make one of our in-person events. It's about an hour long that's taught by Pastor Rob, and he just teaches you really the main core lessons of getting you up to speed. Now, of course, I'd encourage you to join us at an in-person event. We have 12, that are happening this year. Some have already happened, others that are happening up ahead. And then we also just came out recently with what we're kind of calling Generosity Accelerator 2.0. That is some in-depth questions about how do you send so many mission trips? How do you actually do the accounting behind this? What does this look like in the areas of communication and marketing? And so we drill down and do some kind of podcast type episodes that you can listen to. Again, that's free as well on the River Valley Network website. We have Kingdom Builders timelines and downloadable resources, as well as if you shoot us an email, we can send you actually the InDesign file for our Kingdom Builders workbooks that gets you kind of a head start on making a book for your church, showing where the money is going to and different stories. And so truly, again, I hope people hear my heart. This is not about us growing and trying to sign up and getting a $50,000 fee or whatever. We really haven't been paid much from this at all since we started doing this for free. Occasionally people will bring us in to speak and we say, hey, if we're traveling, taking the time to do that, we will. But for these generosity events, for all of our online resources, it's truly just to build the church. And the reason for that is Pastor Rob felt like he got a word that he was supposed to train 10,000 churches that cumulatively give $1 billion away to world missions and church planting every single year. And so that's what we're after. We're after growing Kingdom Builders to $1 billion annually in our network. Last year, just in the people who filled out the survey, which was about 30% of the people we've trained, was 58 million above the tithe. And so we think that represents probably in the 100 to 200 million range because, of course, surveys are only as good as how many people who fill it out. But we still have a long way to go. So we'd invite anyone who's desires that, who has that heart for missions and church planting. We'd love to have you at an accelerator. We'd love to teach you through our online resources, no strings attached. We just want to see the church grow and be fueled and well-resourced so that we can continue to build his kingdom and fight against the attacks of the enemy.
I love that. And I just want to say we've been the recipients not only of attending the in-person, we took our team through the online version. I had some questions and reached out to your team and got on a call with Leslie, and she's been a great resource for us as we're figuring out some of the logistics behind this. And so I just love what you're doing to equip churches and equip pastors, because you're right, this is a thing that people don't really know how to talk about. They don't really know what to do and how to have it be effective. And it's just, generosity is a lot of fun. It can be.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that heart and that vision be able to get out to just more and more people, because then that impact is able to spread so much. So looking ahead, and you shared a little bit about this, but what are some of the hopes and vision for the future of what Generosity Accelerator looks like going forward?
Yeah, the $1 billion initiative is a big one. And so we're going to really work hard towards that, and excited just to see all the churches that are on the journey with us. One of the other things is international. We don't think this is just for American churches. We think this is something that could go international. We have invites from many nations around the world, and part of that is just a cost. It can be cost prohibitive to travel all the way out there, and time and everything. So we're looking into 2025 to start scheduling those out and find some sponsors and partners that say, hey, we've been impacted by this ministry. We want to sow back so that we can help other churches. So we are starting, campaigns to help raise money for some of those things. But it's not in a way of trying to be self-serving, but really to try and get this message out there for people. And so I think international is an exciting opportunity. We're going to continue to do it. Like I said, 12 in 2024. At the time of this recording, there's still, I think, 6 or 7 left in the year. And so we just would invite people to join us on that. And then just continue to make more resources, continue to grow generosity in our church. We fund 1,000 missionaries every single month, and we'd love to get that to 2,000. We want to fund more missionaries, plant more churches. And so anyone who wants to be on that journey with us, we're excited. We're not trying to take the credit for it, but God has done something special. And so we're just trying to practice what we preach and be blessed to be a blessing. And it's been super fulfilling to hear from churches like yours and other churches that say, this has impacted me significantly. And again, I wish I could share all the testimonies, but it's in the hundreds of people that have reached out to us that have said, this has impacted it in a significant way. And so that's very fulfilling to see.
Yeah. Our youth just got back from youth convention, and we had two of these young guys tell our pastors that it was life-changing for them, and that they both went on scholarship. They went
Awesome.
on Kingdom Builders scholarship, And so for us, our world needs Jesus. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is this enables us to get the name of Jesus and the hope of Jesus out into the world. And so anything we can do to crank up the fire behind that and propel that forward, it's what we're called to do. We're called to go and make disciples. And sometimes that involves cash, right?
Yes.
Sometimes that involves money, but that's a part of this discipleship process. So I love that. I'm so excited for what you guys are doing. And so where can people connect with you online and learn more about Generosity Accelerator and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Network.org is our website, and you can just go to the Generosity Accelerator tab, and all the resources should be available there. If anyone has a question, they can email us at network@rivervalley.org. Also, there's a contact form on the site as well. And then me personally, just on social media, at Logan Ketterling are my platforms. I'm probably most active on Instagram. And then if people enjoyed hearing the sound of my voice, even though sometimes it's hard to listen back to yourself, I do run a podcast called Talking Church, where I talk about church and ministry and leadership and finances and all sorts of things. Every week is a different topic related to church and ministry. And so you can find that on Instagram or YouTube, or as we all say, wherever you listen to podcasts. Love just seeing how God has used that podcast to help church leaders all around the world. So
I listen to that podcast too. It's been a really great resource, and I'm loving discovering podcasts that are for pastors.
Yeah.
We can pick up a lot on business leadership and these other things, but really something that speaks to the heart and the situations that pastors are dealing with every day is so important. Well, thank you, Logan, so much for your time in participating in this conversation and just the work that you guys are doing, especially with these Generosity Accelerator trainings. And I'm just looking forward to seeing more and more of that fruit in the years to come. It's going to be good.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And it's a privilege to get to chat with you, Joy, and just the church and all that is happening. I hope that you are blessed by it and many others are blessed by it, and truly mean this. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We don't want to be inaccessible. We want to make ourselves accessible. And so we're cheering you on in your journey of generosity. And I love that you're having these conversations about money and pastors. And I think that it will impact anyone who's leaning in, who's a little uncertain, that, hey, God wants to use generosity so that we can ultimately build his kingdom, not our own.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I'd love to know what you think about it. You can leave a comment on the show notes at pastorsandmoney.com/podcasts or email me at joy@pastorsandmoney.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps us to get the word out and invite more people into these conversations. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Pastors and Money. I can't wait to talk again soon.